The courtroom fell silent as Judge Marcus Bailey announced the guilty verdict. Walter Johnson, a 55-year-old black man, stared in disbelief at Officer Ryan Callahan, who couldn't hide his slight smirk. Suddenly, a woman rose from the gallery. "Your Honor, I need to approach the bench." The judge reluctantly agreed. She whispered something that drained all color from his face. He immediately called for recess. The woman locked eyes with Officer Callahan. He recognized her from somewhere but couldn't place it. "This isn't over yet," she said firmly. What devastating secret could turn a seemingly straightforward case into a battle that would shake an entire city's foundation? Before we dive into this powerful story of injustice and redemption, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If you believe in fighting for justice in our broken system, hit that like and subscribe button, because tomorrow's special episode reveals shocking police corruption cases that will leave you speechless. Now let's get back to our story. Walter Johnson was more than just another face in the community of Oak Ridge. At 55, the former high school history teacher had earned the respect of everyone who knew him. Since retiring 3 years ago after his wife's passing, Walter had dedicated himself to the local youth center, mentoring troubled teens and offering free tutoring sessions. His calm demeanor and wise counsel had changed countless young lives. On that fateful Thursday evening, Walter was driving home after a long day at the center. He had stayed late helping a group of teenagers prepare for their college applications, his heart full from watching their hopeful faces. The streets were quiet, streetlights casting long shadows as he hummed along to an old jazz tune. The flash of police lights in his rearview mirror came as a surprise. Walter checked his speedometer. He wasn't speeding. He signaled and pulled, over carefully, hands visible on the steering wheel just as he had taught his own daughter years ago. "Always be extra cautious during traffic stops," he would tell her. Officer Ryan Callahan approached, flashlight beam aimed directly at Walter's eyes. "License and registration," he demanded without explanation. "May I ask what I'm being pulled?" "Over for, officer?" Walter inquired politely. "Broken taillight," Callahan replied curtly, his tone immediately hostile. "You been drinking tonight?" Walter was confused. "No, sir. I don't drink. I'm coming from the youth center where I volunteer." Callahan's flashlight beam swept the interior of Walter's meticulously maintained sedan. "Sure you are. I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle." "Officer, I'm certain my taillights are working. I had my car serviced just last week." Walter explained calmly. "Are you refusing to comply with a police officer?" Callahan's hand moved to his holster. "No, sir." Walter carefully opened his door. "I'm just trying to understand hands where I can see them," Callahan suddenly shouted. Walter froze, hands raised. "My registration is in the glove compartment. I'll need to reach for it." "Don't move." Callahan drew his weapon as Walter's hand moved slightly toward the glove compartment. "He's reaching for something," Callahan called into his radio. "I need backup at Maple and 4th. "Officer, please," Walter tried to explain. "I'm just getting my registration as you requested." Within seconds, Walter found himself slammed against his car, his arms wrenched painfully behind his back as Callahan roughly handcuffed him. The cold metal bit into his wrists, cutting his skin. "I found something," Callahan announced triumphantly after searching the vehicle. He held up a small bag of white powder. "Look what we have here." Walter stared in disbelief. "That's not mine. I've never seen that before in my life." "That's what they all say," Callahan smirked. "Walter Johnson, you're under arrest for possession of controlled substances. This is ridiculous. That was planted. I'm a retired teacher. I've never had so much as a parking ticket." As a second patrol car arrived, Walter could hear Callahan muttering under his breath. "Another one off the streets. These people never learn." Walter stood in shocked silence as Callahan read his Miranda rights. His mind raced. How could this be happening? The youth center kids were expecting him tomorrow. Who would help them with their applications? His heart sank as he watched Callahan roughly searching through his car, tossing aside books and papers from the passenger seat. "Please, my phone, I need to call my daughter," Walter pleaded. "You'll get your phone call at the station," Callahan said, shoving Walter into the back of the patrol car. "If you're lucky." As they drove away, Walter caught a glimpse of his car. In the side mirror, both taillights were working perfectly. The processing at Oak Ridge Police Station was a blur of humiliation for Walter. His fingerprints were taken, his belongings confiscated, and his repeated requests for a phone call ignored. He watched as younger officers deferred to Callahan, who spoke about the arrest with exaggerated bravado. Found him with 20 grams of cocaine, probably selling to those kids at the center he claims to help, Callahan said, making air quotes. The other officers nodded without question. Walter was placed in an overcrowded holding cell, the only place to sit being the cold concrete floor in the corner. The cell reeked of sweat and despair. Some detainees were clearly suffering from withdrawal, others seemed dangerously unpredictable. At his age, Walter felt vulnerable in ways he never had before. "I'm innocent," he told anyone who would listen. "Officer Callahan planted that evidence in my car." Most officers walked past without acknowledging him. Around midnight, one black detective named Harrison paused by the cell. "Mr. Johnson, I recognize you from the youth center. My nephew Marcus attended your SAT prep sessions," he said quietly. "Detective Harrison, please help me." "This is all a mistake," Walter pleaded. Harrison glanced around nervously. "I'll see what I can do, but Callahan's got powerful friends in the department." Shortly after Harrison left, Walter felt a crushing pressure in his chest. The pain radiated down his left arm. "Help!" he called out. "I need medical attention." 20 minutes passed before anyone responded. By then, the pain had subsided to a dull ache, but Walter knew he'd experienced a warning sign. His blood pressure medication was in his confiscated belongings. "I need my medication," he explained to the officer who finally checked on him. "We'll have a medic look at you in the morning," was the dismissive response. The night stretched endlessly. Walter didn't sleep, his mind racing with worry and his body uncomfortable on the hard floor. How would Maya find him? What would happen to his house, to his reputation in the community he'd served for decades? Morning arrived with harsh, fluorescent lights. Walter was finally allowed his phone call. He dialed Maya's number with shaking fingers, praying she would answer. The call went to voicemail. "Maya, it's Dad. I've been arrested on false charges. Officer Ryan Callahan planted drugs in my car. I'm at Oak Ridge Police Station. Please help me." His voice broke on the last words. When he was brought before the judge for arraignment, Walter was shocked to learn his bail had been set at $50,000, an impossibly high amount for the charges. The public defender assigned to his case, a young man named Brian Taylor, barely made eye contact during their brief consultation. "Look, the evidence is pretty straightforward," Taylor said, shuffling through papers. "The drugs were found in your car. They were planted." "Officer, Callahan has a history of this. Ask Detective Harrison, he knows something isn't right," Walter insisted. Taylor sighed. "Mr. Johnson, do you have any idea how many clients tell me evidence was planted? The judge won't believe it without proof." At the arraignment, Walter pleaded not guilty, his voice firm despite his exhaustion. The judge barely looked up from his paperwork before remanding him to custody pending trial. As Walter was led back to holding, Detective Harrison approached him in the hallway. "I looked into Callahan's arrest record," he whispered. "In the past year, he's arrested 15 black men, over 50 on similar charges, all in the same neighborhood, all with prior clean records." Walter's eyes widened. "That can't be a coincidence." "B. Careful who you talk to in here," Harrison warned before walking away. "Do you believe our justice system treats everyone equally? Comment number 1 if you think Walter should have been granted bail, or number 2 if you think the system worked as it should. This story highlights why it's crucial to understand your rights during police encounters. Like and subscribe for more real stories that expose injustice in our communities. What do you think will happen when Walter's daughter discovers what's happened to her father? And what dark secrets might she uncover about Officer Callahan's true motives? Halfway across the world, Maya Johnson was finalizing details of a complex intelligence operation. At 34, she had built a reputation within the CIA as one of their most skilled field agents. Her specialty was uncovering corruption networks that threatened national security, a talent that had earned her rapid advancement within the agency. Maya checked her encrypted phone as she left a meeting with local assets. She had been so focused on her mission that she hadn't checked personal messages in days. Seeing multiple missed calls from her father's number, sent a chill down her spine. Walter never called more than once unless it was an emergency. The voicemail made her blood run cold. Her father arrested, drugs planted in his car. It was inconceivable. Walter Johnson was the most law-abiding man she knew. He didn't even take aspirin without reading the entire warning label first. "I need emergency leave," Maya told her supervisor 30 minutes later. "Family crisis." "We're at a critical stage in the operation," her supervisor objected. "Can it wait 48 hours?" "No." Maya's voice was steel. "My father has been falsely arrested. I need to leave now." Her supervisor studied her face. "This is the first personal request you've made in 7 years with the agency. Take the leave. But Johnson, be careful about revealing your position, and be aware of the protocols," Maya replied, already mentally planning her approach. On the 14-hour flight back to the States, Maya reflected on her relationship with her father. After her mother died of cancer when Maya was 17, Walter had become her rock. He had supported her decision to join the CIA after college, even though it meant she would rarely see him. He had never once complained about the missed holidays, the vague explanations of her whereabouts, the long silences when she was deep undercover. "I'm proud of you no matter what you do," he would tell her during their infrequent calls. "Just come home when you can." Now he needed her, and Maya was determined not to fail him. The Oak Ridge County Jail was a grim concrete building on the outskirts of town. Maya presented her civilian ID, one of several identities she maintained, and waited in the sterile visitation room. When Walter was brought in, she barely recognized him. In just a few days, he seemed to have aged years. His usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, and he moved with a stiffness that suggested injury. "Maya," he whispered, embracing her with handcuffed wrists. "You came." "Of course I came," she replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Tell me everything." Walter explained about Callahan, the traffic stop, the planted drugs. "I've never seen that officer before in my life, but he seemed to have it in for me from the start." Maya listened, her trained mind cataloging details, inconsistencies, potential leads. "Has your lawyer filed a complaint about the taillight pretext?" "If both lights were working, the stop itself was illegal." Walter shook his head sadly. "My public defender barely has time to read my case file." "I don't think he believes me." "Do you know why Callahan would target you specifically?" Maya pressed. "I've been wondering that myself," Walter admitted. "The only unusual thing recently was a development company that approached me about selling my house. They're buying up properties all along my street for some luxury condos. I refused their offer." Maya's instincts flared. "What's the company name?" "Preston Development. Owned by James Preston. He's been in the news a lot lately for his philanthropic work," Walter said. Maya nodded, memorizing the name. "Dad, I'm going to fix this. But I need you to trust me and not ask too many questions about my methods." Walter studied his daughter's face. "Are you going to do something that could jeopardize your job?" "Because I don't want that." "Let me worry about my job," Maya replied. "You focus on staying safe in here." After leaving the jail, Maya drove to a secure location and used her CIA credentials to remotely access Walter's case file. What she found confirmed her suspicions. The evidence against her father was suspiciously perfect: his fingerprints on the bag of drugs, the arresting officer's immaculate record, the expedited court date. Too perfect. Digging deeper, Maya uncovered a pattern. Officer Ryan Callahan had transferred to Oak Ridge Police Department 3 years ago. Since then, arrests of older black residents in specific neighborhoods had increased by 300%. Most cases never went to trial. The defendants accepted plea deals rather than risk longer sentences. And there was something else: a connection to local politics. Callahan had received 3 commendations from Mayor Gregory Williams, all recommended by prominent businessman James Preston. Maya sat back from her laptop, a chill running down her spine. This wasn't just one corrupt cop. This was something much bigger. The public defender's office was housed in a dingy building across from the courthouse. Maya waited an hour past her scheduled appointment time before Brian Taylor finally appeared, looking harried and overwhelmed. "Sorry, court ran long," he muttered, leading her to a cluttered office barely large enough for his desk. You're Walter Johnson's daughter." "Yes," Maya confirmed. "I want to discuss the evidence against my father," Taylor sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Look, Miss Johnson, I understand this is difficult, but the case against your father is strong. His fingerprints are on the bag containing the drugs. Were his prints on the inside or outside of the bag?" Maya asked. Taylor blinked, surprised by the specific question. "The outside. But that doesn't help much." "It does if the bag was planted," Maya interrupted. "My father could have touched an empty bag at some point at the grocery store, at home, and Officer Callahan could have filled it later." "That's speculation," Taylor countered. "Courts deal in evidence." "Then let's find some," Maya insisted. "Has anyone requested the dashcam footage from Officer Callahan's vehicle or his body cam?" Taylor shuffled uncomfortably. "Both devices were reportedly malfunctioning during the arrest." "Both devices? What are the statistical odds of that?" Maya pressed. "Look, I have 70 active cases right now," Taylor admitted. "Your father's situation is unfortunate, but without concrete evidence of tampering—" "I'll find it myself," Maya said, standing to leave. Outside, Maya activated her secure phone and called her CIA colleague, Sam Reynolds, who owed her a favor, after she'd extracted him from a compromised situation in Eastern Europe. "I need surveillance equipment, nothing traceable," she told him. "This sounds personal, not professional," Sam observed. "It's both if it involves corruption of local law enforcement," Maya countered. "I have reason to believe there's a network. It's operating in Oak Ridge." After securing the equipment, Maya began surveillance on Officer Callahan. For 3 days, she tracked his movements, photographed his contacts, and recorded his conversations in public spaces using directional microphones. On the 4th day, she hit pay dirt. Callahan met with James Preston at an upscale restaurant outside town. Their conversation, which Maya recorded from a nearby table, was revealing. "Johnson still refusing to cooperate?" Preston asked quietly. "He's stubborn," Callahan replied. "But a few weeks in county lockup might change his mind. These older guys don't do well inside." "We need that property," Preston insisted. "The whole development is on hold until we secure it. The investors are getting impatient." "Don't worry," Callahan assured him. "He'll either sell or go down for possession with intent to distribute. Either way, the property becomes available." Maya's hands tightened around her coffee cup. She had suspected a connection, but hearing it laid out so blatantly made her blood boil. This wasn't just about a corrupt cop, it was about systematic displacement of black residents for profit. Further investigation revealed that Preston Development had acquired 17 properties in Walter's neighborhood in the past year. 12 of those sales occurred after the homeowners were arrested by Callahan or his close colleagues. The pattern was undeniable. Maya hacked into Callahan's personal phone, a technique that would be inadmissible in court, but perfect for gathering intelligence. His messages revealed communications with multiple officers, the police captain, and even someone in the district attorney's office. The corruption ran deep. With this knowledge, Maya approached Detective Harrison, catching him as he left the precinct after his shift. "I know about Callahan and Preston," she said without preamble, "and I know you have concerns about what's happening in the department." Harrison tensed. "I don't know what you're talking about." Maya showed him photos of Callahan meeting with Preston. "My father is innocent. He's being framed to pressure him into selling his home. How many others has this happened to?" Harrison looked around nervously before responding. "Look, I can't be seen talking to you, but off the record, Callahan's unit has become untouchable. Anyone who questions their arrests gets shut down by Captain Brooks." "I need evidence," Maya pressed. "Something concrete showing the pattern." Harrison hesitated. "There's an internal affairs complaint I filed 6 months ago. It was buried, but I kept copies of everything. Meet me tomorrow at the diner on Oak Street." As Maya drove back to her hotel that night, she noticed a dark sedan following her. She employed evasive driving techniques, taking random turns and doubling back until she was certain she'd lost her tail. Someone was watching her. Her investigation had been noticed. Have you ever witnessed corruption in your community? Comment number 1 if you believe police accountability needs to be strengthened, or number 2 if you think the current oversight systems are adequate. Like and subscribe if you want to see more stories. that expose how power can be abused without consequence. How far will Maya go to protect her father? And what dangers might she face as she digs deeper into this web of corruption that seems to have ensnared the entire city? By the following morning, Maya had compiled an initial evidence package: photographs of Callahan meeting Preston, transcripts of their conversation, records of property sales following arrests, and a statistical analysis showing the pattern of targeted arrests in Walter's neighborhood. The evidence was circumstantial, but compelling when viewed as a whole. Maya's research had identified Assistant District Attorney Catherine Wells as someone with a reputation for integrity. After several calls, she secured a meeting at a coffee shop away from the courthouse. "I appreciate you meeting me," Maya said, as Wells, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, studied the folder Maya had placed between them. "This is quite an accusation," Wells replied, after reviewing the contents. "Officer Callahan is highly regarded in the department." "By whom?" Maya challenged. "The same people benefiting from these targeted arrests?" Wells continued examining the documents. "The pattern is concerning, I'll admit, but without direct evidence of evidence tampering, it's not enough to dismiss charges against your father." "What about the suspicious timing of both Callahan's dashcam and body cam malfunctioning?" "Technical glitches happen," Wells said, though her expression suggested she didn't entirely believe it. "We'd need someone to testify that they saw Callahan. Plant the evidence." "What about the connection to Preston Development, 12 properties purchased after arrests?" Wells sat back. "That's the most troubling part. I've been hearing rumors about Preston's influence, but nothing concrete until now." She closed the folder. "I'll look into this discreetly. If what you're suggesting is true, it goes beyond your father's case." "How long will this take?" Maya pressed. "My father is not well. He needs his medication regularly, which I'm told he's not receiving consistently in jail." "I can't make promises, but I'll prioritize it," Wells assured her. "In the meantime, gather any additional evidence you can, and be careful if Preston has the influence you suggest. This could be dangerous." Maya visited Walter that afternoon. His condition had deteriorated noticeably. His normally immaculate appearance was disheveled, and dark circles underlined his eyes. "The chest pain came back last night," he admitted when Maya asked about his health. "They finally gave me my medication this morning." "I'm working on getting you out," Maya promised. "I found connections between Callahan and a developer who wants your property." Walter shook his head. "Maya, whatever you're doing, be careful. This isn't worth you getting hurt. They're systematically targeting black homeowners, Dad. This is bigger than just your case." Walter reached across the table, his handcuffs clanking. "Promise me you won't take unnecessary risks. I couldn't bear it if something happened to you because of me." Maya squeezed his hand, but didn't make a promise she knew she would break. She left the jail. Maya received an alert on her secure phone. The trial date for her father had been moved up by 2 weeks, an unusually quick timeline that suggested someone was trying to rush the process before she could gather more evidence. That night, Maya returned to her hotel room to find the door slightly ajar. Drawing her concealed weapon, she entered cautiously. The room had been thoroughly searched, drawers emptied, mattress overturned. Her laptop was untouched. Its specialized encryption had likely deterred the intruders, but the physical copies of her evidence were gone. Maya immediately relocated to a different hotel under a new identity, a standard CIA protocol for compromised, safe locations. As she set up her equipment in the new room, her phone rang. It was Catherine Wells. "I've been removed from any cases involving Officer Callahan," Wells said without preamble. "Officially, it's due to resource reallocation, but the timing is suspicious." "Who's handling my father's case now?" Maya asked. "Ada Thomas Reed," Wells replied grimly. "He and Preston are golfing buddies. I'm sorry, but I can't help you officially anymore." The next morning, Maya attempted to meet with Reed, only to be told repeatedly that he was unavailable. After waiting for 3 hours in the district attorney's office, she was informed that Reed had no interest in reviewing speculative allegations against a decorated officer. Returning to her car in the parking garage, Maya found all 4 tires slashed. A note had been tucked under the windshield wiper. "Stop digging, or next time it won't be your car that gets cut." Maya photographed the note before carefully removing it with a tissue to preserve any fingerprints. The threat only confirmed she was on the right track, but it also meant she needed to accelerate her timeline. Walter's case was moving quickly, and the opposition was becoming more aggressive. As she waited for a taxi, Maya made a decision. Standard investigative approaches weren't working. It was time to employ more direct CIA tactics. Maya had infiltrated criminal organizations, terrorist cells, and hostile government agencies during her CIA career. Creating a false identity to penetrate Preston development would be straightforward by comparison. Within 48 hours, Emily Chen, a highly qualified executive assistant with an impeccable resume, applied for a position at Preston Development. Maya's CIA training had included comprehensive instruction in document forgery, and her fake credentials were flawless. The company's background check would reveal an employment history that actually consisted of CIA shell companies established for precisely this purpose. 3 days later, Maya sat across from James Preston's HR director, answering questions with practiced confidence. By the end of the interview, she was offered a temporary position filling in for Preston's regular assistant, who was on medical leave. "Mr. Preston needs someone he can trust immediately," the HR director explained. "His projects are at critical stages and confidentiality is paramount. Discretion is my specialty," Maya assured her. On her first day, Maya arrived early to familiarize herself with the office layout. Preston Development occupied the top 3 floors of Oak Ridge's most prestigious office building. Security was tight, but focused primarily on the building entrance rather than internal monitoring and oversight Maya planned to exploit. James Preston was exactly as she had expected, polished, charismatic, and accustomed to getting his way. At 52, he projected an image of the self-made businessman turned philanthropist. His office walls were lined with photos of ribbon cuttings and charity events, carefully crafting a public image of community service. "Emily, I need complete access to the Riverside project files," Preston instructed her within the first hour. "We're facing some resistance from a few remaining property owners, and I need to review our options." "Of course, Mr. Preston," Maya replied professionally. "Should I prioritize any particular properties?" "The Johnson property on Maple Street," Preston said, not noticing how Maya's fingers momentarily paused over her keyboard. "It's becoming a problem." Over the next week, Maya established herself as an efficient, unobtrusive presence in Preston's office. She arrived early, stayed late, and carefully built a reputation for reliability. All the while, she was gathering intelligence, photographing documents after hours, and mapping the company's network of influence. The Riverside project, she discovered, was far more valuable than it initially appeared. Environmental testing had revealed valuable mineral deposits under the neighborhood. What had been pitched to investors as luxury condominiums was actually a mineral extraction operation disguised as urban renewal. More disturbing was a document she found in Preston's confidential files, a list of acquisition targets with Walter's name prominently featured, along with notes about his vulnerabilities. Other names on the list had been crossed off as their properties were acquired, most following arrests or other legal troubles. Maya carefully photographed the list using specialized CIA equipment that left no digital footprint on the company's systems. She then accessed Preston's email, finding communications with Police Captain Brooks discussing community cleanup in the targeted neighborhoods. On her 5th day undercover, Maya hit the jackpot. Preston had a closed-door meeting with Officer Callahan in his office. Using a directional microphone disguised as a smartphone charger, she recorded their entire conversation. "Johnson's daughter is becoming a problem," Callahan said. "She's been asking questions, meeting with people in the department." "Handle it," Preston replied dismissively. "We're too close to let one family derail everything. The investors are expecting results." "My usual methods aren't working with her," Callahan admitted. "She's different, professional, like she has training." Preston's tone hardened. "I don't care if she's FBI or whatever. Make it clear that continuing to interfere will have consequences. For her and her father. What about Johnson's trial? Reed is on board, but we need to make sure the judge doesn't allow any character witnesses." "Judge Simmons owes me," Preston assured him. "He'll keep the trial focused on the evidence you provided. Speaking of which, you're certain it's solid? Johnson's prints are on the bag. That's all that matters in court." Maya's heart raced as she listened, but her face remained impassive as she worked at her desk outside Preston's office. When the meeting ended, she smiled politely as Callahan exited. That evening, as the office emptied, Maya stayed behind to access the company's financial records. She needed to document the money trail between Preston and the various officials he had compromised. Absorbed in her search, she didn't immediately notice the security guard making an unscheduled round. When the office door opened, Maya barely had time to close the confidential files and open a spreadsheet that would appear work-related. "Working late?" the guard asked, suspicious. "Mr. Preston needs these projections for a morning meeting," Maya explained smoothly. "Just finishing up." The guard seemed satisfied and continued his rounds, but Maya knew her cover might be compromised. She quickly downloaded the financial data she'd found onto an encrypted drive and prepared to leave. As she gathered her belongings, her phone buzzed with an alert from a program she'd installed to monitor Preston's emails. A new message had just arrived from the head of security. "Background check on new assistant shows inconsistencies. Detained for questioning tomorrow." Maya knew her time was up. She had the evidence she needed, but now she needed to disappear before morning. Using her CIA training, she methodically removed traces of her presence, replacing the originals of any documents she had accessed. As she left the building, Maya noticed a black SUV parked across the street with two men watching the entrance. Preston's security team was already mobilizing. She exited through the service entrance instead, vanishing into the night with the evidence that could save her father. Have you ever had to go undercover to discover the truth? Comment number 1 if you would risk everything to protect your family, or number 2 if you think Maya is crossing too many lines. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more stories about ordinary people taking extraordinary measures against corruption. What will Maya do now that her cover is blown? And with Preston's network closing in, is there anyone left she can trust to help save her father before it's too late? Maya knew her escape from Preston Development wouldn't go unnoticed. She needed to relocate quickly and secure her evidence before Preston's security team could track her down. Using CIA protocols for compromised operations, she abandoned her rental car and purchased a used sedan with cash from a private seller. By morning, she had checked into her third different hotel in 24 hours, this time registering under yet another alias. As she set up her equipment in the new room, she received an alert from one of her monitoring programs. Preston's security team had searched her previous hotel room just hours after she'd vacated it. "They're moving fast," she muttered to herself. The urgency suggested the evidence she'd gathered was even more damaging than she'd initially believed. Maya encrypted her findings and backed them up to secure servers only accessible with her CIA credentials. If anything happened to her, the evidence wouldn't be lost. She then began organizing what she had: property acquisition records, the target list with her father's name, financial transactions between Preston and various city officials, and the recorded conversation about tampering with her father's trial. Her secure phone rang an anonymous number that she recognized as Detective Harrison's burner phone. "They're watching me," Harrison said without preamble. "2 officers from Callahan's unit have been following me since yesterday." "Have you been approached directly?" Maya asked. "Not yet, but it's coming. Listen, something's happened with your father. He was attacked in the jail yesterday." Maya's blood ran cold. "How bad?" "Bad enough to put him in the prison infirmary. 3 inmates jumped him in the yard. Guards took their time responding." "I need to see him," Maya said immediately. "That might be what they want to draw you out," Harrison warned. "The inmates who attacked him were all arrested by Callahan in the past 6 months. This wasn't random." Despite the warning, Maya went to the county jail hospital wing that afternoon, taking elaborate precautions to ensure she wasn't followed. What she saw devastated her. Walter lay handcuffed to a hospital bed, his face swollen from multiple blows, his breathing labored. "Dad," she whispered, taking his hand gently. Walter's eyes fluttered open. "Maya," he said, his voice raspy. You shouldn't be here, it's not safe. What happened? 3 men cornered me in the yard, said to tell my daughter to stop asking questions. Walter winced as he shifted position. One of them mentioned Preston by name, said he sends his regards. Maya fought to control her rage. I'm going to get you out of here. There's something else you should know, Walter said, his voice dropping to ensure the guard outside couldn't hear. I recognized one of Preston's men who came to visit another inmate yesterday. He was the same man who approached me about selling my house 6 months ago. Said his name was Marcus Wells, but I overheard the guards calling him Daniels. Did he see you? I don't think so. But Maya, these people, they've been planning this for a long time. My arrest wasn't random. I know, Maya assured him. I've found evidence connecting Preston to targeted arrests throughout your neighborhood. He's been using Callahan to force people to sell their homes. Why my neighborhood specifically? Walter asked. There are mineral deposits under the land. Preston discovered it and kept it quiet while he bought up properties cheap. Walter closed his eyes briefly, processing this information. Maya, whatever you're doing, it's too dangerous. These people have connections everywhere. Look what they did to me just to send you a message. I'm trained for this, Dad, Maya reminded him gently. Not against your own government, Walter countered. This isn't some foreign operation. These are police officers, judges, local officials, people who are supposed to protect us. Maya couldn't argue with his logic, but she also couldn't back down. I'm close to having enough evidence to expose the whole operation. Just hang on a little longer. As she left the hospital wing, Maya noticed a black sedan parked across from the jail entrance, the same vehicle she'd spotted outside Preston Development. She ducked back inside and exited through an employee entrance, but the message was clear. Preston's men were watching the jail, waiting for her. That evening, Maya monitored local news broadcasts from her hotel room. James Preston had called a press conference to discuss his company's continued commitment to urban renewal in historically neglected neighborhoods. We understand there are elements within these communities resistant to change, Preston told reporters with practiced sincerity. But we cannot allow criminal activity to impede progress that will ultimately benefit everyone in Oak Ridge. The camera cut to Officer Callahan standing behind Preston. The police department remains committed to keeping these neighborhoods safe. During this transition period, he added, the subtext was unmistakable. Anyone opposing the development would be treated as a criminal element. It was a public warning aimed directly at Maya and anyone who might help her. Minutes after the broadcast, Maya's hotel room phone rang unusual, since no one knew she was staying there. We know you're in the building, a male voice said when she answered. This is your only warning. Return what you took from Mr. Preston's office, and this ends now. Your father might even get a favorable plea deal. Maya didn't respond immediately, gathering her essential equipment. Someone had tracked her to this hotel, likely by following her from the jail. As she prepared to relocate again, she spotted movement in the parking lot below her window. 2 men were approaching the building, their hands concealed under their jackets. Using her emergency extraction training, Maya slipped out through the adjoining room's balcony, descended to the lower floor, and made her way to the service exit. As she drove away, she saw the men entering the hotel lobby. The escalation was clear. Preston wasn't just trying to intimidate her anymore, he was actively hunting her, and with each passing day, her father remained in danger. After 3 days of gathering additional evidence and moving between safe locations, Maya had compiled a comprehensive case file documenting the corruption network. The evidence connected Preston Development to Officer Callahan, Police Captain Brooks, Judge Simmons, and Assistant District Attorney Reed. Financial records showed suspicious payments disguised as consulting fees, and property records revealed how arrested homeowners' properties were quickly acquired at below-market prices. Maya made the decision to approach federal authorities. Local law enforcement was too compromised, but the FBI's Public Corruption Unit might be able to intervene. Using CIA back channels, she arranged a meeting with Special Agent Dominic Ramirez at a federal building in the neighboring county. Here's extensive, Ramirez commented as he reviewed Maya's evidence. You've done impressive work connecting these dots. My father's trial is in 10 days, Maya reminded him. Every hour he spends in that jail, his life is at risk. Ramirez nodded. I understand the urgency. This kind of systematic corruption targeting minority homeowners is exactly what our unit investigates. Let me bring this to my supervisor immediately. Maya felt her first real sense of hope since returning to Oak Ridge. The federal government had resources and authority that she, as a single agent, couldn't match. Ramirez seemed genuinely disturbed by the evidence and eager to act. That hope was crushed when Ramirez called her the next morning. I've been instructed to return your materials and inform you that we won't be pursuing an investigation at this time, he said, his voice carefully neutral. What? Why? Maya demanded. Official reason is insufficient evidence to establish federal jurisdiction, Ramirez replied. Unofficially, someone made a call. This came down from 3 levels above me. Preston has influence at the federal level? Maya asked, though she already knew the answer. I can't comment further, Ramirez said. I'm sorry about your father. The setback was devastating. Maya had been counting on federal intervention to stop her father's trial. Now, with just 9 days remaining, she had to find another approach. She returned to her latest temporary lodging to find Catherine Wells waiting for her. How did you find me? Maya asked, immediately suspicious. Detective Harrison told me where to look, Wells explained. I'm not here officially. In fact, I've been warned to stay away from anything related to Preston or Callahan. Yet here you are. I've been a prosecutor for 15 years, Wells said. I've never seen evidence buried this quickly or thoroughly. Whatever Preston is protecting, it's bigger than just some real estate deal. Mineral rights, Maya told her. There's a rare earth mineral deposit under the neighborhood. Preston discovered it while doing environmental testing for another project. The land is worth 100 times what he's paying for it. Wells nodded slowly. That explains the urgency and the high-level interference. Rare earth minerals are strategically important. Preston probably has investors with political connections. So what now? The trial is proceeding. Federal authorities won't intervene, and Preston's people are actively hunting me. The public defender assigned to your father is completely overwhelmed, Wells said. From what I've heard, he's barely prepared any defense. Maya paced the small room. What if we went to the media? I have documented evidence of corruption. Preston owns significant shares in the local newspaper, and the TV stations won't run a story this explosive without official sources, Wells warned. You'd be discredited before you could present your evidence. The walls were closing in. Maya had never felt so frustrated, even during her most difficult CIA operations. At least in those situations, she'd been operating on foreign soil with clear adversaries. Here, the enemy was the very system that was supposed to ensure justice. The day before Walter's trial, Maya attended a final pre-trial hearing. The courtroom was mostly empty except for the principals, the overwhelmed public defender, ADA Reed looking smug, and Judge Simmons presiding with obvious impatience. Maya watched as motion after motion filed by the defense was summarily denied. Request for dismissal based on improper search? Denied. Motion to suppress evidence due to chain of custody concerns? Denied. Request to introduce Callahan's history of arrests in the same neighborhood? Denied as irrelevant. The public defender, Brian Taylor, was clearly out of his depth, his arguments disorganized and easily dismantled by Reed. Maya could see the defeat in Taylor's posture as the hearing concluded with every ruling favoring the prosecution. Outside the courtroom, Maya approached Taylor. You need to request a continuance. My father's life depends on this case. Taylor looked at her with exhausted eyes. Ms. Johnson, I've filed every motion I can think of. Judge Simmons has denied them all. I have 27 other active cases. I'm doing my best, but the evidence against your father is strong. It's fabricated evidence, Maya insisted. Prove it, Taylor challenged. Give me something I can use in court tomorrow. Maya hesitated. Her evidence had been gathered through methods that would be inadmissible in court: illegal surveillance, computer hacking, impersonation. Using it would not only fail to help her father, but could potentially expose her CIA identity. As she left the courthouse, Maya noticed media vans setting up outside. A reporter was doing a live stand-up report about Walter's case, The trial of E. Walter Johnson begins tomorrow, the reporter was saying. Johnson is accused of drug possession with intent to distribute. Sources in the district attorney's office described the case as open and shut, with strong physical evidence linking Johnson to the crime. The public narrative was already being established. Her father was being portrayed as a drug dealer rather than the respected teacher and community volunteer he truly was. That evening, a small protest formed outside the courthouse. Members of Walter's community, former students, parents of kids he had mentored, colleagues from the youth center gathered, with signs demanding justice. Maya watched from across the street, heartened by the support but also concerned. Police officers, including several from Callahan's unit, were photographing the protesters. As night fell, the police moved in, citing a technical violation of the protest permit. Several protesters were roughly arrested, their signs confiscated. The message was clear. Support for Walter Johnson would not be tolerated. Maya slipped away before the officers could spot her. Her options were dwindling. Federal authorities had backed off. The local justice system was corrupted. The media was in Preston's pocket, and now even public support was being suppressed. Tomorrow, her father would face trial with inadequate representation against fabricated evidence before a judge who had already decided the outcome. Maya needed a new strategy, and she needed it now. Are you frustrated by how the system seems to work against ordinary people? Comment number 1 if you think our justice system needs major reform, or number 2 if you believe these kinds of corruption cases are rare exceptions. Like and subscribe if you want to see more stories that expose how wealth and power can manipulate what should be fair and impartial institutions. With every avenue seemingly blocked, what desperate measures might Maya be forced to take? And could revealing her true identity be the only way to save her father, even if it means sacrificing her own career? Maya knew she couldn't defeat Preston's network alone. She needed allies, people with access, influence and courage to stand against corruption. Her CIA training emphasized the importance of coalition building in hostile territory, and Oak Ridge had definitely become hostile territory. Detective Harrison was already helping her at great personal risk. Catherine Wells had demonstrated integrity by reaching out, despite warnings to stay away. But Maya needed more allies with different capabilities. She arranged a meeting at a rarely used storage facility on the outskirts of town. Detective Harrison arrived first, followed by Catherine Wells. The final invitee was Zoe Washington, an investigative journalist Maya had identified as having written several critical pieces about Preston development in the past, before those stories mysteriously stopped. "Thank you all for coming," Maya began once everyone had arrived. "I know being here puts each of you at risk." "Why am I here?" Zoe asked directly. "I'm not writing about Preston anymore. My editor made that very clear." "Because you're the only journalist in Oak Ridge who tried to investigate him," Maya explained. "And I think you want to finish what you started." Zoe's expression confirmed Maya's assessment. "What exactly are we doing here?" "Forming an alliance," Maya said simply. "Each of you has pieces of a puzzle that, when assembled, reveals systematic corruption targeting black homeowners in Oak Ridge. Detective Harrison has police records. Ms. Wells has insights into the legal manipulation. Ms. Washington has journalistic resources and public platform. Together we might be able to save my father and expose the entire operation." "And what do you bring to this alliance?" Zoe asked skeptically. Maya chose her words carefully. "I have specialized investigative skills and evidence that connects Preston to Callahan and documents their plan to target specific homeowners." Harrison spoke up. "I've seen her evidence. It's compelling, and I've had concerns about Callahan's unit for over a year. Their arrest patterns are statistically impossible without targeting. I can provide context on how cases are being manipulated once they enter the justice system," Wells added. "Judge assignments, prosecutor selections, trial scheduling, it's all being coordinated." Zoe still looked unconvinced. "My editor killed every Preston story I brought him. Even with evidence, I can't guarantee publication." "We don't need your publication yet," Maya clarified. "We need your investigative skills and connections. If we can build a case strong enough, with multiple sources and irrefutable evidence, your editor won't be able to ignore it. Over the next Several hours the group shared information, connecting dots that each had only partially seen before. Harrison revealed that Callahan had previously been fired from a police department in a neighboring state for misconduct, but those records had been sealed when he applied in Oak Ridge. Captain Brooks deliberately bypassed standard background checks to hire him, Harrison explained. I found the original complaint records in archived files. Callahan was accused of planting evidence in 3 separate cases, all involving minority defendants. Wells contributed her knowledge of the court system's manipulation. Judge Simmons has recused himself from every case involving Preston Development as a named party, citing a conflict of interest. Yet he presides over all criminal cases connected to properties Preston wants to acquire. Classic separation tactic, Maya noted, maintaining technical legal distance while ensuring desired outcomes. Zoe had been taking detailed notes. I tracked Preston's political donations. He's contributed to every elected official involved in zoning, law enforcement oversight, and judicial appointments. But here's what's interesting. The rare earth mineral angle explains something I could never figure out. Preston's company has been operating at a significant loss for 3 years while acquiring these properties. No legitimate developer continues a money-losing strategy that long without another agenda. As their meeting progressed, a comprehensive picture emerged of Preston's operation. Preston discovers valuable mineral deposits during routine environmental testing rather than alerting property owners, which would drive up prices. He creates a development company as cover. He secures political influence through targeted donations. He places key allies in police, prosecutor's office, and judiciary. Callahan and his unit target homeowners who refuse to sell fabricated arrests, force homeowners into legal jeopardy, financial pressure from legal troubles and incarceration forces. Sales. Preston acquires properties at below market rates. The true value of the mineral rights remains hidden until all properties are acquired. This isn't just corruption, Wells said, stunned by the scale. This is a calculated conspiracy that's destroyed dozens of lives. And my father is just the latest victim, Maya added grimly. His trial starts tomorrow. We need to act immediately. The group developed a 2-pronged strategy. Prepare evidence for court to exonerate Walter, while simultaneously assembling a comprehensive exposé for public release. Harrison would provide official police records showing Callahan's pattern of arrests. Wells would document the irregular court procedures. Zoe would investigate Preston's business filings and political connections. Maya would contribute her evidence of the direct conspiracy. If we can create enough legal and public pressure simultaneously, they won't be able to continue the cover-up, Maya explained. The team dispersed with clear assignments and a communication protocol using encrypted messaging. For the first time since discovering her father's arrest, Maya felt cautiously optimistic. The alliance brought together exactly the combination of skills and access she needed. That optimism was shattered the next morning when Maya received an urgent message from Harrison. Someone talking. Editor knows. Meeting compromised. Evidence. At station seized. Within hours, the carefully constructed alliance began to unravel. Harrison was placed on administrative leave, allegedly for mishandling evidence. Wells was called into an emergency meeting with the district attorney. And most damaging of all, Zoe Washington published a short article praising Preston Development's innovative approach to urban renewal and dismissing conspiracy theories. About targeted arrests, Maya immediately recognized what had happened. Zoe's editor hadn't just killed the story. He was connected to Preston and had alerted him to their investigation. The carefully gathered evidence Harrison had collected from police records was confiscated in an internal audit. Their entire strategy had been compromised. With Walter's trial set to begin in less than 24 hours and their alliance effectively destroyed, Maya faced her most difficult decision yet. Standard investigative approaches had failed. Legal channels were blocked. Media exposure was impossible. Her only remaining option was one she had hoped to avoid, leveraging her CIA status directly. As a covert operative, revealing her identity would have serious professional consequences. But as Walter Johnson's daughter, she was running out of options to save her father's life. Maya sat alone in her latest temporary lodging, the weight of her decision hanging heavy in the pre-dawn darkness. Using her CIA credentials in a domestic matter violated agency protocols and could end her career. But watching her innocent father, convicted on fabricated charges, was unthinkable. She initiated a secure call to her direct supervisor at Langley, Deputy Director Evans. "Johnson, I thought you were on family leave," Evans answered, sounding surprised. "Sir, I need to discuss an unusual request," Maya began carefully. "I've encountered a domestic corruption situation involving my father." "Stop right there," Evans interrupted. "You know agency resources cannot be used for personal matters on U.S. soil." "This isn't just personal," Maya countered. "There's a network of corrupt officials targeting black homeowners to acquire land containing strategic minerals. The corruption includes local law enforcement, judiciary, and possibly extends to federal levels." A long pause followed. "That would fall under FBI jurisdiction, not ours." "I've approached the FBI. Someone blocked the investigation. My father's trial begins today on fabricated charges. He's already been physically attacked in jail as a warning to me." "What exactly are you asking for, Johnson?" "Permission to disclose my CIA affiliation in court to establish credibility for evidence I've gathered." "Limited disclosure only, nothing operational." "Absolutely not," Evans replied firmly. "That's completely outside protocol. Sir, with respect, the evidence I've gathered suggests mineral deposits valuable enough to be considered a matter of national security. If these resources fall under exclusive control of private interests with questionable connections, submit your findings through proper channels and let the system work," Evans instructed. "The system is what's been corrupted," Maya insisted. "My father's trial begins in 5 hours. He doesn't have time for proper channels." "I sympathize with your situation, Johnson, but I cannot authorize disclosure of your agency affiliation for a personal matter. That's final." Maya had anticipated this response but had hoped for more flexibility. "I understand, sir. Thank you for your time." After ending the call, Maya immediately initiated another secure communication, this time to CIA Director Patricia Harding. Going directly to the director was a career-risking move, but Maya was out of options. "Director Harding, I apologize for the direct contact. This is Agent Maya Johnson with an urgent matter involving potential compromise of strategic resources and systemic corruption targeting U.S. citizens." To Maya's surprise, Harding was already aware of the situation. "Deputy Director Evans briefed me on your call. He recommended disciplinary action for even considering disclosure." Maya's heart sank, but she pressed on. "Director, I'm not asking to use CIA resources against U.S. citizens. I'm asking for limited permission to establish my credibility when presenting evidence of crimes I've uncovered as a private citizen. The distinction is important legally, but practically, you'd still be leveraging your CIA position in a domestic matter," Harding noted. "My father will be convicted today based on fabricated evidence. He's already been physically attacked in custody. I've exhausted every other option." A long silence followed. Finally, Harding spoke. "I cannot officially authorize what you're requesting. However, I can ensure that if you choose to take certain actions as a private citizen, the agency's response will take into account the unusual circumstances and your previously unblemished record." It wasn't explicit permission, but it was as close as Maya could hope for an indication that while she might face consequences, they wouldn't necessarily be career-ending. "I understand, Director. Thank you." With that tentative assurance, Maya began preparing for her desperate plan. She wouldn't have agency support, but at least she might have a career to return to afterward. Maya contacted Catherine Wells, who had managed to avoid being completely sidelined in the fallout from their exposed alliance. "I need to get into that courtroom and testify," Maya explained, "and I need Judge Simmons to take me seriously." "He won't," Wells warned. "Simmons is completely in Preston's pocket. He'll dismiss anything you say." "Not if I can establish credentials he can't ignore." Wells was silent for a moment. "You're going to reveal your actual position." "It's the only card I have left," Maya confirmed. "That's a massive professional risk. I'm aware, but I need your help making it work." "I'm aware, but I need your help making it work." I need to know exactly when to enter the courtroom for maximum impact. Wells agreed to message Maya with timing updates throughout the trial. They also established a backup plan in case Maya was prevented from entering the courtroom. Next, Maya secured her evidence in multiple locations. She created 3 identical packages with everything she had gathered: financial records, property, transfers, communications between Preston and Callahan, and documented evidence of judicial misconduct. One package went to a trusted CIA colleague with instructions to release it if anything happened to her. Another was hidden in a secure location only she knew about. The third she would bring to court. Maya also prepared a recorded statement detailing the entire conspiracy, which would automatically upload to several news outlets if she didn't enter a cancellation code every 12 hours. It was an insurance policy against the worst-case scenario. With preparations complete, Maya focused on her approach to the courthouse. Preston's security team would certainly be watching all entrances. She would need a disguise and perfect timing. While finalizing her plans, Maya received an unexpected call from a blocked number. "I can help you get evidence against Callahan," said a raspy voice she didn't recognize. "Who is this?" Maya demanded. "Name's Marcus Davis. I did some work for Callahan, planting evidence, intimidating witnesses, but he set me up to take a fall." When things got hot, Maya was instantly suspicious. "Why contact me? I'm in county lockup on charges Callahan arranged. I saw what happened to your father here. I've got recorded conversations with Callahan discussing how he plants evidence, including in your father's car. It could be a trap, but it could also be exactly what she needed, a direct witness to Callahan's evidence tampering. What do you want in exchange?" "Help with my case, and protection from Callahan's people in here. They've already tried to silence me once." Maya agreed to meet Davis at the jail, taking elaborate precautions to ensure she wasn't followed. The meeting was brief but productive. Davis provided details only someone directly involved would know, and had managed to smuggle a small recording device into the jail through his attorney. The recordings included Callahan explicitly discussing planting drugs in Walter's car. "This is why I became a cop," Callahan's voice said clearly on the recording. "These people think they're untouchable in their neighborhoods. All it takes is one little bag in the right place, and suddenly they're just another criminal nobody believes." It was damning evidence if Maya could get it admitted in court. As she left the jail, Maya spotted 2 of Callahan's officers watching the entrance. They recognized her immediately and began moving in her direction. Maya slipped into a crowded elevator, exited on a different floor, and used an employee entrance to escape the building. The officers pursued, calling for backup. Maya employed every evasion technique in her CIA training, darting through service corridors, changing directions in crowded areas, and briefly boarding a bus, only to exit immediately before the doors closed. Despite her training, one of the officers managed to stay on her trail. As she rounded a corner into an alley, Maya found herself face to face with the officer, his weapon drawn. "Stop right there," he commanded. "Callahan wants to talk to you." Maya assessed her options in an instant. She couldn't risk being detained now, not with Walter's trial hours away. Using her CIA combat training, she disarmed the officer with a precise strike to his wrist, followed by a sweep that sent him to the ground. She didn't wait to see if he would pursue further, disappearing into the maze of downtown streets. The confrontation left her with a painful realization. Callahan was now using official police resources to hunt her. Her window of opportunity was closing fast. Tomorrow's trial would be her last chance to save her father. The Oak Ridge County Courthouse was an imposing neoclassical building, its marble steps crowded with reporters, protesters, and curious onlookers as Walter Johnson's trial began. Inside courtroom 3, Walter sat beside his public defender, his expression resigned as he surveyed the proceedings. Days in jail had taken their toll. He looked older, frailer, a shadow of the vibrant community leader he had been just weeks earlier. From her position across the street, disguised in a maintenance worker's uniform, Maya monitored the situation through binoculars. She had identified all security personnel, noting with concern the presence of several private security contractors working for Preston Development mixed among the regular courthouse security. Maya's phone buzzed with a message from Catherine Wells. Prosecution opening statement complete. Defense struggling. Callahan set to testify in 30 minutes. The timing would be tight. Maya needed to enter during Callahan's testimony for maximum impact, but before the defense rested its case, she donned a wig and glasses as additional disguise, elements, and made her way toward the courthouse's side entrance where security was lighter. Using her CIA credential, modified to appear as a legal consultation badge, Maya navigated through the employee sections of the courthouse. Years of moving undetected through hostile environments had prepared her for precisely this kind of infiltration. Inside the courtroom, ADA Reed was establishing the prosecution's narrative with practiced precision. Officer Callahan, a decorated member of our police force, stopped the defendant for a routine traffic violation. During this stop, he observed suspicious behavior that justified a search of the vehicle. This search uncovered a significant quantity of cocaine packaged for distribution. Walter's public defender, Brian Taylor, looked overwhelmed and underprepared. His objections were infrequent and easily overruled by Judge Simmons, who made little effort to hide his impatience with the defense. Officer Callahan took the stand, projecting an image of professional confidence. He recounted the traffic stop, with rehearsed precision, describing Walter as immediately hostile and suspicious. The defendant made furtive movements toward the glove compartment, leading me to believe he might be reaching for a weapon. Callahan testified smoothly. Reed presented the evidence bag containing the drugs allegedly found in Walter's car. "And is this the substance you discovered in the defendant's vehicle?" "Yes, it is," Callahan confirmed. "It was concealed under the driver's seat, packaged in a manner consistent with intent to distribute." "And did you at any point lose custody of this evidence?" "No, sir. I maintained proper chain of custody procedures at all times." Reed turned to the judge. "No further questions, Your Honor." Taylor rose for cross-examination, his nervous demeanor contrasting sharply with Callahan's confidence. "Officer Callahan, you claim my client's taillight was broken, justifying the initial stop." "That's correct. Yet the inspection report from the impound lot shows both taillights in working order." Callahan didn't miss a beat. "Taillights can be intermittent, especially with wiring issues. It was clearly malfunctioning during my observation." Taylor tried another approach. "You've arrested 16 residents from the same neighborhood in the past year, all on similar charges. All homeowners. All who refused to sell to Preston Development. That seems like an unusual coincidence." "Objection," Reed interjected. "Relevance." "Sustained," Judge Simmons ruled immediately. "Confine your questions to this specific case, Counselor." Taylor's shoulders slumped slightly. "Officer Callahan, did you activate your body camera during this stop?" "There was a technical malfunction with the equipment." "And your dashboard camera?" "Also." "Malfunctioning that evening. Convenient that both cameras failed simultaneously, isn't it?" "Objection," Reed called. "Argumentative." "Sustained," Simmons ruled. "The jury will disregard the defense's comment." It was at this moment that Maya received Wells's signal. "Now." Maya entered the courtroom quietly, taking a seat in the back row. She observed Preston sitting directly behind the prosecution table, occasionally passing notes to Reed. Captain Brooks was also present, along with several officers from Callahan's unit. Taylor continued his ineffective cross-examination, clearly lacking the evidence needed to challenge Callahan's testimony. As he began to wrap up, Maya stood. "Your Honor, the defense wishes to call a surprise witness." Judge Simmons looked startled. "Mr. Taylor, is this your request?" Taylor turned, confused. Maya strode confidently to the defense table, whispering urgently to the public defender. His eyes widened as she explained who she was and what evidence she possessed. "Yes, Your Honor," Taylor said with newfound confidence. "The defense calls Maya Johnson." "Objection." Reed was on his feet immediately. "This witness wasn't on the disclosure list. The defense can't spring surprise witnesses in the middle of trial." "Your Honor," Taylor countered with unexpected authority, "Ms. Johnson has just come forward with critical evidence directly relevant to Officer Callahan's testimony. Under Brady disclosure requirements, this evidence must be considered." Judge Simmons frowned, clearly annoyed by this disruption to what had been proceeding as a straightforward conviction. "Approach the bench, both of you." As the attorneys conferred with the judge, Maya removed her disguise and made her way to the front of the courtroom. Callahan, still on the witness stand, suddenly recognized her and visibly tensed. Preston leaned forward, whispering urgently to his security personnel. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs as spectators sensed the dramatic shift in proceedings. After several minutes of heated discussion at the bench, Judge Simmons appeared frustrated but constrained by procedural requirements. "The court will allow this witness, but with strict limitations. Ms. Johnson, you are to confine your testimony solely to direct knowledge relevant to this specific case." Maya was sworn in, replacing Callahan on the witness stand. The officer moved to the prosecution table, his expression a mixture of anger and concern. "Ms. Johnson," Taylor began, "what is your relationship to the defendant?" "Walter Johnson is my father," Maya stated clearly. "And what evidence do you have regarding Officer Callahan's testimony?" "I have proof that Officer Callahan deliberately planted evidence in my father's car as part of a systematic effort to force homeowners in the Riverside neighborhood to sell their properties to Preston Development." The courtroom erupted in gasps and exclamations. Judge Simmons banged his gavel repeatedly. "Order! Ms. Johnson, that is a serious accusation against a police officer without foundation." "I have foundation, Your Honor," Maya replied calmly. "But before I present it, I need to establish my credibility with the court." She removed an identification card from her pocket, approaching the bench. "Your Honor, I am a Central Intelligence Agency field officer with 10 years of experience investigating corruption and organized crime. My credentials can be verified through secure channels." Simmons examined the ID with open shock. "Counsel, approach." Another sidebar conference ensued, this one longer and more intense. The judge appeared increasingly uncomfortable as Maya provided contact information for CIA Director Harding's office. When proceedings resumed, Judge Simmons addressed the court. "The witness's credentials have been authenticated. The court will permit limited testimony," Reed immediately objected. "Your Honor, the CIA has no domestic jurisdiction. Any evidence gathered by Ms. Johnson would be inadmissible and potentially illegal." "I gathered this evidence as a private citizen concerned for my father's safety," Maya clarified. "My CIA training simply allowed me to recognize the patterns of corruption more readily." With the judge's reluctant permission, Maya systematically presented her evidence. She produced the recording of Callahan admitting to planting evidence in Walter's car, documentation of the pattern of arrests targeting homeowners who refused to sell, and financial records showing payments from Preston Development to accounts linked to Callahan. "Officer Callahan has arrested 16 homeowners in the Riverside neighborhood in the past year," Maya testified. 15 of those properties were subsequently purchased by Preston Development at prices far below market value. "The 16th property is my father's home." Maya then presented evidence of the mineral deposits discovered during environmental testing. "Preston Development isn't actually developing anything. They're acquiring land with valuable rare earth minerals without informing the homeowners of the true value of their property." As Maya's testimony continued, Preston's face darkened. He passed an urgent note to Reed, who immediately stood. "Your Honor, this testimony goes far beyond the scope of the current case. Ms. Johnson is making unfounded accusations against individuals not even charged in this matter." Judge Simmons seemed torn. The evidence Maya presented was compelling, but accepting it would implicate not just Callahan and Preston, but potentially the judge himself. "Ms. Johnson, do you have any direct evidence of Officer Callahan planting evidence in your father's specific case?" "Yes, Your Honor," Maya replied, producing a final piece of evidence. "This is a surveillance recording from a property adjacent to where my father was stopped. It clearly shows Officer Callahan removing a package from his own pocket before claiming to find it in my father's car." The courtroom fell silent as the recording was played. The video quality was poor, but the actions were unmistakable. Callahan could be seen approaching Walter's car, reaching into his uniform pocket, and then emerging moments later, claiming to have found something in the vehicle. Walter watched from the defense table, tears welling in his eyes as the truth was finally revealed. Callahan's face had gone pale, his eyes darting between Preston, Captain Brooks, and the exits. Judge Simmons, now visibly uncomfortable, called for another conference at the bench. This sidebar lasted nearly 20 minutes, with animated discussion between the judge, prosecutors, and defense. When they returned to their positions, Judge Simmons made an unexpected announcement. In light of this new evidence, I am recusing myself from this case due to potential conflicts of interest. This matter will be reassigned to Judge Caroline Washington for immediate review. Court is in recess until tomorrow morning. As the bailiff moved to escort Walter back to holding, Maya caught his eye. For the first time since her return, she saw hope in her father's expression. Reed approached Maya as the courtroom began to clear. "You've made a serious mistake today," he warned quietly. "This isn't over." "I know it isn't," Maya replied. "This is just the beginning." The courtroom was packed beyond capacity the next morning. News of Maya's dramatic testimony had spread throughout Oak Ridge, drawing media attention, community members, and even representatives from the State Attorney General's office. Judge Caroline Washington, known for her strict adherence to proper procedure, presided in place of the recused Judge Simmons. Unlike her predecessor, Judge Washington began by thoroughly reviewing all evidence presented thus far, including Maya's testimony and recordings. Her expression remained impassive as she studied the materials, occasionally making notes. Walter sat at the defense table looking more hopeful than he had in weeks. Maya occupied a seat directly behind him, acutely aware of the Preston development. Security personnel scattered throughout the courtroom. James Preston himself had arrived, accompanied by an expanded legal team. He projected confidence, stopping to speak with reporters outside the courthouse about baseless allegations and his continued commitment to revitalizing Oak Ridge. Officer Callahan was notably absent. When proceedings began, Judge Washington addressed the court. "Having reviewed the evidence presented yesterday, I find sufficient cause for concern regarding the integrity of the arrest and evidence collection in this case. I am ordering an immediate investigation into these allegations." Assistant District Attorney Reed immediately rose to object. "Your Honor, the prosecution maintains that Ms. Johnson's evidence was collected through questionable means and should be inadmissible." "Mr. Reed," Judge Washington replied sternly, "when evidence of potential official misconduct emerges, this court has an obligation to investigate, regardless of how that evidence came to light. The integrity of our justice system is at stake." She turned to address the numerous law enforcement officials present. "I am ordering Officer Ryan Callahan to appear before this court immediately to address these allegations." A murmur ran through the courtroom as a bailiff approached the bench with a message. After reading it, Judge Washington looked up with a frown. "I've just been informed that Officer Callahan cannot be located. He failed to report for duty this morning and is not responding to department communications." Preston shifted uncomfortably in his seat, whispering urgently to his attorneys. Captain Brooks, seated nearby, maintained a rigid facade, though his complexion had paled noticeably. "In light of these circumstances," Judge Washington continued, "I am dismissing all charges against Walter Johnson with prejudice. Mr. Johnson, you are free to go." The gallery erupted in cheers as Walter rose, momentarily stunned by the sudden turn of events. Maya rushed forward, embracing her father as tears streamed down both their faces. "It's over, Dad," she whispered. "You're free." As court officers removed Walter's handcuffs, Judge Washington continued addressing the courtroom. "Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the State Bureau of Investigation for a complete inquiry into the allegations of evidence, tampering, official misconduct, and conspiracy. All officers mentioned in yesterday's testimony are to be placed on administrative leave pending investigation." Captain Brooks stood abruptly, moving toward the exit, only to find his path blocked by two plainclothes agents. "Captain Theodore." "Brooks," one of the agents announced, displaying a badge. "I'm Special Agent Wilson with the FBI Public Corruption Unit. We'd like to ask you some questions regarding your relationship with Preston Development." The dramatic scene intensified as more FBI agents entered the courtroom, approaching several officers from Callahan's unit. The federal presence was unexpected. The very agency that had declined to help Maya days earlier was now taking decisive action. Preston, observing these developments with growing alarm, rose to leave. As he reached the courtroom doors, He found Maya blocking his path. "This isn't over," he hissed. "Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? My investors include people who can make one phone call and end this charade." "I know exactly who I'm dealing with," Maya replied calmly, "and so do they." She nodded toward another group of federal agents entering the courtroom. Leading them was Special Agent Dominic Ramirez, the same FBI agent who had initially returned Maya's evidence. "James Preston," Ramirez announced, "you're under arrest for conspiracy, witness tampering, and violating the RICO Act. We have a warrant to search all Preston Development properties and financial records." Preston's face contorted with rage and disbelief. "This is impossible. I made calls. This investigation was shut down." "It was," Ramirez acknowledged, "until additional evidence emerged from multiple sources simultaneously. Even your connections couldn't contain it." As Preston was led away in handcuffs, Ramirez approached Maya. "Your evidence was the catalyst, but we needed corroboration from inside the network. When Callahan disappeared this morning, one of his officers decided to save himself by coming forward with everything. Then others followed." The courtroom had transformed into a hub of activity as various law enforcement agencies coordinated their response to the unraveling conspiracy. Reporters clamored for statements, while community members embraced in celebration. Walter, still processing his sudden freedom, turned to Maya. "You risked everything for me." "You would have done the same," Maya replied simply. "Your job will there be consequences." Maya smiled slightly. "Let's just say I had an understanding with my director. There will be administrative reviews, but given the national security implications of the mineral rights Preston was quietly acquiring, my actions have been retroactively classified as appropriate." Detective Harrison, recently reinstated after his suspension was deemed retaliatory, approached them. "The department has a lot to answer for," he said solemnly. "The new acting captain wants to personally apologize for what happened to you, Mr. Johnson." "Apologies are a start," Walter replied. "But real change in how policing happens in our communities, that's what matters." In the days that followed, the full extent of Preston's corruption network was exposed. Judge Simmons resigned before impeachment proceedings could begin. Ada Reed was disbarred. Dozens of officers were implicated in the systematic targeting of black homeowners. Most importantly for the community, all property transfers connected to the scheme were invalidated by court order. Homeowners who had been forced to sell under duress were given the opportunity to reclaim their properties with compensation for damages. The mineral rights that had motivated Preston's criminal enterprise were ultimately registered with the state's Environmental Protection Division, ensuring any future extraction would benefit the entire community rather than private interests. 6 months later, Walter stood before the newly established Oak Ridge Police Accountability Board, taking the oath of office as its first chairperson. The board, created in direct response to the Preston scandal, gave community members oversight authority in cases of alleged police misconduct. "We cannot erase the injustices of the past," Walter told the assembled crowd, "but we can build systems that prevent them in the future. True justice requires vigilance, transparency, and community involvement." Maya watched from the audience, immensely proud of her father's resilience and determination to create positive change from his traumatic experience. Her brief leave of absence had stretched into a special assignment as the CIA recognized the value of her unique perspective on domestic corruption with national security implications. After the ceremony, father and daughter walked together through the neighborhood that had nearly been lost to greed and corruption. "You know what still amazes me?" Walter reflected. "How close they came to succeeding if you hadn't come home when you did. I almost didn't check my messages that day," Maya admitted. "Sometimes the smallest decisions change everything." Walter nodded thoughtfully. "I've been teaching young people all my life that the system works if you believe in it. Then suddenly I was on the wrong side of that system, and nothing I said mattered." "The system is made of people," Maya replied. "Some corrupt, some courageous. In the end, it was people standing together that made the difference." As they approached Walter's home, the house he had refused to sell, despite overwhelming pressure, they saw neighborhood children playing in the community garden that now occupied a formerly vacant lot. The garden had been established with funds from the settlement against Preston Development. "You'll be leaving again soon," Walter asked, already knowing the answer. Next week, Maya confirmed, but I'll check my messages more often. Walter smiled, embracing his daughter. Just come home when you can. I will, Dad, Maya promised. I always will. This story reminds us that justice is not automatic. It requires vigilance and courage. When systems become corrupted, it's often the most vulnerable communities that suffer first, particularly racial minorities, whose concerns can be easily dismissed. Walter's case demonstrates how racism can infect institutions designed to protect all citizens equally, creating two-tiered justice. The power of privilege and wealth can distort even well-designed systems, as Preston's influence extended, from local police to federal agencies. However, the story also shows that determined individuals working together can expose corruption and demand accountability. Maya's dilemma highlights the difficult choices people face when official channels fail. Follow rules that protect corrupt systems or take personal risks to pursue justice. Sometimes doing what's right means challenging authority rather than simply trusting it. Perhaps most importantly, this story teaches us that systemic racism isn't always about outright hatred. Often, it operates through economic exploitation, calculating that certain communities can be victimized with minimal consequences. Yet when communities unite with allies inside the system, even the most entrenched corruption can be defeated. Have you ever witnessed injustice in your community and felt powerless to stop it? Or perhaps you've been in a situation where speaking up meant risking everything. Share your experiences in the comments below. What would you have done if you were in Maya's position, facing the choice between following protocol or saving your father? If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to support more content that explores the complexities of justice in America. Share this with someone who needs to understand how racism can operate within our institutions. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the most important step toward justice is simply refusing to stay silent when we witness wrong.